hppodcraft.com.
Okay, now we are rolling.
Of the events which took place at the Norton Mine on October 18th and 19th, 1894, I have no desire to speak. A sense of duty to science is all that impels me to recall, in the last years of my life, scenes and happenings fraught with a terror doubly acute because I cannot wholly define it. But I believe that before I die, I should tell what I know of the, shall I say, transition of Juan Romero. Is this too hammy?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Pete Lambert, who is he's an editor, film editor.
Yeah, well, he's got a beautiful voice, but that's what he does.
That's what he does professionally, and he's
as a
working
film
on
editor.
the Twilight sequel, New Moon, right now. Not as we speak.
Wow. I hear that film's got a lot of teenagers very excited in their dirty parts.
Oh, yes, it does.
Their necks.
Yeah.
They have dirty necks. Terrible joke.
It was. It really was. I'm a little ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of you, Chad Pfeiffer.
Oh, yeah. So I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
And I'm Chris Lackey.
And this is the H.P. Lovecraft Literary Podcast.
hppodcraft.com.
We switched it up a little bit.
I know.
Actually.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We keep it fresh here.
Yeah, that's the way we do it. So today we're talking about...
We're talking about the transubstantiation of Juan Romero.
I thought it was the transfixion of Ray Romano.
No, I believe it is the transportation
of George Romero.
Juan Valdez. I think I said that last week, didn't I? I said Juan Valdez last week.
I don't know. It is actually the transition of Juan Romero.
Yes.
Which the intro paragraph that we just heard tells us. We've got a character, a guy, he's got a past.
A very sordid past. One he will not speak of.
That's right. And he's coming to the States, the United States, the western part, the great open west.
Yes, the Southwest.
The Southwest, looking for anonymity. He was apparently some kind of soldier, a British soldier, we assume, had been stationed in India, where he spent more time with, as he says, the white-bearded native teachers than officers.
Yes.
He really dug Eastern lore, but something happened out there.
We don't know. He doesn't say.
He doesn't say.
He won't tell us.
It drove him here to the U.S. under an assumed name.
Yeah, and we don't even know his assumed name. He doesn't even tell us that.
He doesn't tell us anything. We do know that it's 1894.
Well, it tells us something.
Yes. He's working as a laborer in the Norton Mine, which was discovered by a prospector and turned out to be full of gold.
Lots of gold.
And there's some caverns in there, which the superintendent of the mine speculates were made by water, carved out by water, and that soon they'll open up the rest of them.
Yes. So he gets a job down in these mines, and and then that's where he meets this fella.
Juan Romero.
Mm-hmm. And Juan is, he's Hispanic, but there's something different about him. He's not, doesn't look like the typical Hispanic guy.
That's right. He doesn't look like a typical Mexican laborer. What he says is...
he at first attracted attention only because of his features, which, though plainly of the Red Indian type, were yet remarkable for their light colour and refined conformation, being vastly unlike those of the average greaser or Paiute of the locality.
Yeah.
Greaser.
Yeah, again, just folks, I know some of you maybe haven't read a lot of Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. Not all of it is so racially and egotistically slanted. I know all the things that we've read so far kind of pretty much have been. Maybe The Tomb doesn't really touch on any of that kind of stuff. But later on, his stories, I don't know why it's so prevalent in all of his early work.
I don't know. I like that he used the word greaser. In my head, I pretended that he meant that gang from...
I pictured guys with pompadours and leather jackets and rolled-up jeans.
From The Outsiders, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, Paiute is an Indian tribe that's
yes.
native to the American West. That's what he means by that. And he goes on to say that Romero differed a lot from the Mexicans, but didn't look Caucasian. It's not that he had white blood mixed in. It was more as if he were from an ancient Aztec lineage.
Yes.
And there's actually a little goofiness with how Juan came into being.
Yeah. So supposedly they found him as a child by a large crevasse that opened up and there's two skeletons that were presumed to be his parents.
Two skeletons, newly picked by vultures, and presumably forming the sole remains of his parents. No one recalled their identity, and they were soon forgotten by the many. Indeed, the crumbling of the adobe hut and the closing of the rock fissure by a subsequent avalanche had helped to efface even the scene from recollection. Reared by a Mexican cattle thief who had given him his name, Juan differed little from his fellows.
Cattle thief.
Yeah, he can be as snooty as he wants, but it's really badass to have a Mexican cattle thief as your dad.
Yeah, I wish my dad was a Mexican cattle thief.
Well, I think everybody does, honestly.
I love my dad. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. He's
sure.
a great guy, but he would be a lot cooler if he was a Mexican cattle thief.
There's pretty much no profession that a guy could have that wouldn't be trumped by Mexican cattle.
Yeah. It's like a royal flush. You know?
No.
Okay.
The protagonist does say that Romero's into him.
Well, not him so much, but his ring.
Right.
Yeah, because he's got this ring, and Juan keeps getting fixated on it, and he keeps looking at his ring. And this ring he picked up when he was in India, and it's some kind of Hindu mystical significance.
Yeah, he spells Hindu Hindoo.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just an antiquated spelling or if
I'm not sure either. If somebody listening does know if that
please.
has a different significance than your Hindu with a U, let us know. I think maybe that's
And a lot of the notes I've read of Lovecraft's, like when he does, how he spells Eskimo, it's just an antiquated spelling.
Right.
It changes around. So I'm guessing that that's what it is. But if anybody out there knows, please let us.
Well, Romero, Juan's really into that ring. He really likes it,
Yeah.
that mystical ring, and soon he becomes almost like our protagonist's servant. So one day, the miners, when Juan and our protagonist aren't working, they lay a huge charge underground in the mines, where they believe there's only solid rock. And they're going to blow that up and hopefully find a couple more caverns to get some gold.
And kaboom!
Yeah.
Guess what? There is not just a little hole that gets blown, a bottomless abyss.
Right. The explosion just rocks the whole area. It shatters. It makes the mountain kind of shake.
Yeah,
and
dudes get knocked off their feet.
windows shatter. The lake heaves up.
Yeah,
and down there in the mines, there's an abyss that's enormous.
Yeah, they start trying to test to see how far down it goes, and they don't have enough rope.
They find no bottom.
No.
And it's really freaking the workers out.
Yeah, Superintendent, I think he says, hey folks, let's just, block off that area. We'll figure out what to do about it.
Yeah.
Because he's a little confused. Bottomless holes, not too common.
Yeah, it reminded me of a story that H.P. Lovecraft wrote for Harry Houdini that he ghost wrote
yeah,
for him.
Under the Pharaohs, right?
Underneath the Pharaohs took us. It's called Imprisoned with the Pharaohs, or that's how I read it, but I think it has another title.
Yeah, which is
Under the Pyramids.
Under the Pyramids, yeah.
But in that, Houdini gets lowered into a pyramid, and I think he wakes up as he's being lowered down. And they drop. We finally hits the ground, and then they drop the rope on him, and it keeps falling and falling and falling and falling and falling, and it's just the idea that these things are bottomless, or you're so far down in the earth.
So far down,
it's horrifying. So they leave it be for the time, and then that night.
At 2 a.m, a lone coyote on the mountain began to howl dismally. From somewhere within the works, a dog barked an answer, either to the coyote or to something else. A storm was gathering around the peaks of the range, and weirdly shaped clouds scudded horribly across the blurred patch of celestial light which marked a gibbous moon's attempts to shine through many layers of cirrostratus vapors.
Oh my god, the sound effects are amazing, Chris.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Thank you. I've studied under Michael Winslow.
Of Police Academy fame?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Well,
that's wait, audience, that's not true.
That night, they hear all the coyote howling and the dog, and then something else kind of starts happening below the earth. And from the bunk above, Juan Romero starts shouting in Spanish.
Madre Dios. El sonido. Ogivid. I don't know. What is that? That doesn't even look like Spanish to me. Señor, that sound. El coyote? El perro? El vinto?
I could listen to it all night, man.
That throb down in the ground, he says.
That's what Romero says. And then
he's flipping out.
Yeah, and now our protagonist hears it.
Heard and shivered, and without knowing why. Deep, deep below me was a sound, a rhythm, just as the peon had said, which, though exceedingly faint, yet dominated even the dog, the coyote, and the increasing tempest. To seek to describe it was useless, for it was such that no description is possible. Perhaps it was like the pulsing of the engines far down in a great liner, as sensed from the deck, yet it was not so mechanical, not so devoid of the element of the life and consciousness.
I really like that description of the engines in the boat. That it's that kind of a...
It's that kind of thing, but it's organic.
Yeah.
It's like some big thing is causing a
Yeah,
big
it's
living thing.
rolling by down there. Yeah. So they both jump out of their bunk beds.
Yes.
And they listen. And in every flash of lightning, Romero's looking down at that ring that our protagonist
Yeah,
has.
and it seems to glint. It seems whenever the lightning hits, it looks like it's glinting extraordinarily.
And none of the other miners are around at the time.
No, everybody's off supposedly drinking. That's
Right.
what he guesses.
Yeah, they're all at the bar drinking up. And so Juan and our guy, they start descending into the mine.
Yeah.
As we descended the shaft, the sound beneath grew definitely composite. It struck me as horribly like a sort of oriental ceremony, with beatings of drums and chanting of many voices.
So it becomes a more tangible thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Almost like some kind of rite or ritual is
Right.
going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's maybe somebody's calling something forth. I don't know.
Yeah. So something could be coming from below, or
Exactly.
they've stumbled onto some kind of subterranean civilization or something. And they can see down there because...
Of his ring. His ring is glowing. His magic Hindu ring. And, they can see down there, but then Juan gets pretty excited, and he just starts, booking down there, running ahead of him. And so he's like, whoa, no, hey, Juan, where's he running off to? And, of course, he's running off to the hole.
The climax of that awful night was composite but fairly brief, beginning just as I reached the final cavern of the journey. Out of the darkness immediately ahead burst a final shriek from the Mexican, which was joined by such a chorus of uncouth sound as I could never hear again and survive. In that moment it seemed as if all the hidden terrors and monstrosities of Earth had become articulate in an effort to overwhelm the human race. Simultaneously, the light from my ring was extinguished, and I saw a new light glimmering from lower space, but a few yards ahead of me. I had arrived at the abyss, which was now redly aglow, and which had evidently swallowed up the unfortunate Romero. Advancing, I peered over the edge of that chasm which no line could fathom, and which was now a pandemonium of flickering flame and hideous uproar. At first I beheld nothing but a seething blur of luminosity, but then shapes, all infinitely distant, began to detach themselves from the confusion, and I saw... Was it Juan Romero? But God, I dare not tell you what I saw. Some power from heaven coming to my aid obliterated both sights and sounds in such a crash as may be heard when two universes collide in space. Chaos supervened, and I knew the peace of oblivion.
He sees some trippy stuff.
Right. He sees, we think, Juan down there?
Yeah, he sees what he thinks is Juan transitioned into some kind of luminescent being, very similar to...
Beyond the Wall of Sleep.
Beyond the Wall of Sleep. And it kind of blows his mind.
Yeah.
And then he...
And there's another cleansing blast
Oh,
of
yes,
lightning.
yeah. And then, of course, lightning crashes, hits the mountain, and a cleansing blast of lightning once again.
Yeah.
And he wakes up. The narrator wakes up in his bed, and Juan is on the table. All the other miners are around him. Juan is dead.
Yeah, and everybody assumes that whatever happened with these guys or whatever happened with Juan is just the work of that lightning that struck the mountain the night before.
Yeah, exactly.
That was real, but nobody heard any chanting, nobody heard any drums.
No.
And the lightning, the effect of that is that the cavern below is caved in, and now it's just full of solid rock down there.
Yep.
It's almost as if it didn't get filled in by rubble, but it's almost as if the ground just rose up to fill it.
Yeah.
And there's no getting in there.
Nope.
And the Hindu ring,
Was gone.
it's gone.
It's gone. But he doesn't think anybody stole it. I think he says something like...
Somehow I doubt if it was stolen by mortal hands, for many strange things were taught me in India.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's pretty
one.
good.
That's a good one.
And he ends up saying,
My opinion of the whole experience varies from time to time. In broad daylight, and at most seasons, I'm apt to think the greater part of it a mere dream. But sometimes, in the autumn, about 2 a.m, when the winds and animals howl dismally, there comes from inconceivable depths below a damnable suggestion of rhythmical throbbing. And I feel that the transition of Juan Romero was a terrible one indeed.
and that's the
That's the end.
that's the end of the story. What did you think of that?
I like this story.
Yeah.
It's not one of his popular stories. In fact, he hated this story and it didn't get published until after he died.
Oh, Lovecraft himself hated it.
Yeah, he didn't like it. He wrote it in September 16th, 1919, but it wasn't published until 1944, which is many years after his death. Supposedly, the only reason that it has seen the light of day is because of Robert H. Barlow. He was talking with Barlow or sending letters and mentioned the story, and Barlow was like, "Give me the story. I want to typeset it. I want to typeset it." And Lovecraft's like, "All right, fine, you can have it." And he sent it to him, and that's pretty much the only reason why it exists.
Wow. Well, thank you, Mr. Barlow.
Yeah, good job.
Because I liked it too. It had a good setting. I thought was neat.
Really different from most of Lovecraft's stuff. I mean, there are two other stories that we'll eventually get to: The Curse of Yig and The Mound, which were both set in the Northwest or Southwest, excuse me.
It had a good suggestion of backstory for the main character. I like that he gets a glimpse of something really horrible and then doesn't really get any explanation for it.
No.
I mean, it suggested maybe the whole thing was a dream, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But just in terms of articulating a certain type of horror, it reminds me of in life. I mean, it's bound to happen to you at some point that you'll see something. It won't make any sense to you. It'll creep you out or make you feel really strange or maybe like you need to get out of there, and then you won't ever get any explanation for it. You don't know why what was going on.
No, right, exactly. That reminds me of a time in college when I was hanging out with this guy John, who was a really strange guy, and I don't know if you've ever had this where you don't know somebody very well. I mean, this is, I think, something happens when you're young. You don't know somebody very well, but they seem cool, and they're like, "Hey, why don't you come with me and do this thing?" You're like, "All right, yeah, sure." So he, I think, was smoking pot, or he was getting some pot, or he knew a guy, or I don't know what it was about. I didn't smoke at the time, but I was a young fella, and I was just excited to meet different people, and so I followed him around. So we went to this person's apartment, and it was really weird. Like, there were like some older women around, and like heavy set, like way old, like in their 60s, and there was like this younger punk rock guy sitting on the couch next to an older heavy-set woman, and they were holding hands watching TV, and it was really creepy. I don't know if they were related or if it was like his girlfriend.
Whatever it was about that, it just really unsettled you.
It unsettled me. It didn't seem right, and they seemed like they were on drugs too. Like maybe they were high or something like that. And I never got an explanation.
Right, and that you'll always remember that, and you'll never know what was going on.
Oh yeah, no.
And sometimes I think that is really why people begin to believe in ghosts or believe in supernatural events, because I mean, I don't know, I remember when I was a little kid, I was standing in the bathroom and I got hit in the head with a hairbrush.
Right.
I looked around and nobody was there. I couldn't explain it.
Right.
Now I still can't explain it. I'm guessing that one of my siblings threw it and hit me in the head and just got away because I was a little kid and I wasn't that astute an observer.
Right.
But some people will say, I can't explain it, therefore
it must be a ghost.
It must be, a soul floating around trapped. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll go to a really crazy way to explain it.
Crazy explanation, because having even a crazy explanation is better than no explanation.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's part of the reason I like this story. It ended in a happy way a little bit, because the implication is that Juan was actually from this ancient... I mean, that he just kind of got pushed up from the ground.
Right, and then he was reclaimed.
Yeah. I don't know, I think that's kind of cool.
Well, I mean, the only thing... At the end, he says with a terrible transition, which kind of puts a little bit of a negative spin on it. But, yeah, it made me think that maybe there was some kind of cosmic imbalance when he got spit out of the earth, when Juan... and then... everything was made right again when he was pulled back. So,
and it was maybe terrible to our protagonist because he's not meant to see that kind of thing,
right?
And he doesn't understand it. It reminded me of Beyond the Wall of Sleep, and you made reference to this a bit ago, because in both stories we have these very subhuman descriptions of people. In that story, the guy was a sort of a hillbilly. Here he's a Mexican day laborer, and just really brutal descriptions of these people.
Yeah,
But each of them had something really special within them that was sort of discovered within the story.
Right.
Something otherworldly and beyond that mere physical kind of, whatever evaluation that the protagonist has of them. And I think that's kind of cool too.
I think it's much cooler in this story because it does make Juan seems very special. But in The Wall of Sleep, he really...
Yeah, you're right.
He kind of... it's some other entity that's trapped in a body of a hillbilly.
Right. It's
you know?
unfortunately
Yeah.
imprisoned. Right.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, and some of the descriptions in here of Juan are pretty offensive too. But
Yeah.
I wanted to say, in fact, he's described as the ancient Aztecs were this noble race, but these Mexicans are not.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I was doing a little research on the story and looking up the name Juan Romero. There's a lot of people named Juan Romero, but one guy in particular kind of caught my eye, and he was a busboy who was working at the hotel here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
When Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, when he was shot. And he actually was with Kennedy in his dying moments. And, well, a lot of people offered this guy a lot of money to tell his story. He could have made quite a nice bundle of money off of this, but he believed that one man's tragedy shouldn't be another man's profit, and so he never took any of it.
Really?
No, never. He just didn't accept a dime of it. And this guy, Juan Romero, he lives up in Northern California now. He's still, he does manual labor. He also helps immigrant families when they come through by letting them stay in his place.
Wow.
To me, that is like being part of a huge historical event like that and choosing not to cash in on it because he knows that real people got hurt is pretty much one of the more noble things I've heard in my life.
Yeah. I totally agree. That's really amazing.
So take that, Lovecraft.
Yeah, Lovecraft.
I dig on things in caverns.
It's pretty scary. There was that movie Descent. I always thought was pretty creepy.
It's really good, and I'll say that the claustrophobia to me was even scarier than any of the cave creatures or anything.
Oh yeah. When the girl gets she's trying to go through the little small crevice and
It's horrible.
She gets stuck in there.
That's the worst. That you can't move your head or your arms or your legs, just being pinned like that.
It's pretty disturbing.
And
well, because I mean, you could, if you're stuck there, it would take you a long time to die. I think is what makes it more horrific than just even suffocating or drowning. Because that only takes a few moments and then you pass out and then you die. But that you can starve to death.
Right.
Or some critter can come up and start eating your toes, and you can't do anything about it.
And it's just pitch black down there. It's unexplored to this day. I mean, there's tons of caverns underneath the planet. We have no idea what's down there.
No.
And
probably dinosaurs, living dinosaurs.
Probably dinosaurs. Probably some race of giant people.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
But, well, in Dagon, we saw Lovecraft take on the ocean for the first time.
Right. Oh, yeah. And this is, he's kind of going underground now.
Yeah, he's going underground. He's been in space with Polaris. He's kind of setting up all of his little sets that he likes to play in. And one of these, the subterranean stuff is really one of my favorites.
Right.
Caverns just scare the out of me.
Pretty good. There's another thing. You made reference about how Lovecraft will throw out stuff and then just not explain it.
Yeah, he does that.
Specifically, the Aztec god, Huitzilopochtli.
That's pretty good.
Or Huitzilopochtli, which
I have Huitzilopochtli.
No, that's wrong. That's not right. Where'd you hear that? Where'd you get that from?
I looked at the phonetic spelling of the word, and then I looked at all the sounds of those phonemes, and then I pieced it together.
I went to Aztec mythology websites that specialized in this, and that's where I got. But there was many of them, and then they had different pronunciations. It said either Huitzilopochtli or Huitzilopochtli.
Okay.
They have big names, these gods. But anyway, this guy was a hummingbird of the south on the left, or the left-handed hummingbird. But basically, he was a god of war and a sun god, which kind of ties into how Lovecraft mentioned that Juan would put his hands up, and he would be like praying to the sun and doing all that stuff. And
hold on, are you done talking? Because I have an award for you for getting that pronunciation right. Huitzilopochtli or whatever the heck it is. He's in that sort of pantheon with Quetzalcoatl.
Yep. Same guy. Aztec mythology, man.
In that, the myth of this guy, one thing that really cracked me up, and you clearly know more about this than me, but when he was in the womb, Huitzilopochtli found out that there was some conspiracy to kill his mother or take him out.
I don't know anything about this.
And so he learned of that conspiracy, broke out early, Athena-like, and I think killed like 400 of his siblings or something like that.
Wait, he killed his siblings?
Yeah, killed all of them.
Why?
I don't. He was angry about this conspiracy.
But were they in on it?
Well, they must have been if he killed them. Well, look, mythology doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it
sometimes.
doesn't necessarily. Maybe he just wanted to be the only sibling.
There's a lot of blood involved with this guy, and I think a lot of sacrifices and human sacrifices were made in this unpronounceable name,
right?
Which Lovecraft threw out there and didn't bother.
Well, no, I know he did a lot of reading. He one of the things I know that he read A Descent into the Maelstrom and also Conquest of Mexico by Prescott. And he mentions that in some of his letters. So he might actually have, some good knowledge of this god. And
I'm sure
and
he does.
use it to, or,
I thought it was cool that he threw it out. That it was one of those things where a footnote would have been nice by the author, because he
Right.
throws it out and he says, "And once I read what that was about, I got really scared." And it takes me out of the story because I'm like, "What? I have to go over to my library now and look."
Yeah,
up
and read
this
this
guy,
thing.
you know?
Yeah.
That's
No,
just a
it's
pet peeve of
it's
mine.
it's a pain in the... Well, on a quick side note about this, I found a stick figure comic strip of this story.
Oh, cool! I was just about to say I couldn't find a movie adaptation.
No,
or
there isn't. There isn't
any
one.
even.
But there is
song.
a stick figure cartoon. It's at lostcarcosa.net/comic, and I'll put that in the show notes.
Cool.
And it's really cool. It's the whole story. It's about 5 pages, and he does a few other more obscure Lovecraft stories. So I think go check it out. It's neat.
Cool, man.
Moving on from Juan Romero, there are 2 other stories that were written in 1919 that we're not really going to go into any detail on.
Okay.
But I wanted to bring them up briefly because I read them, and I think you read them too.
Yeah,
Memory.
Mm-hmm.
Memory is really short. It's only about a page, and it's a quick story. A genie comes in from outer space, flies into this valley where there's this demon hanging out, and the genie says to the demon, "Hey, look at all these ruins and these monkeys and things going on. What ancient civilization made these ruins?" And then the demon says, "Oh, it was this ancient race that once existed on the planet but no longer exists. The race was called man." Dun dun dun! Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy.
Wow.
But so it's a
It's okay.
page.
Not-
It's
yeah.
not. It wasn't worth. I wanted to mention it because it was written in this page. But also he wrote this. This I'm totally into. I mean, it's terribly written and not very interesting. But what it is, it's called Old Bugs.
Oh gosh, I bet that's about ancient race of insect man.
You would think it is, but
Yeah.
it's actually about a bum, a derelict,
Called bugs.
called Old Bugs.
Oh, okay.
And so Old Bugs, this wasn't published until after his death, like not until 1959 in a bunch of random Lovecraft pieces. But there's a reason why. Well, one, because it's terrible. But the whole point of the reason why he wrote this story was because Alfred Galpin suggested to Lovecraft that he wanted to try alcohol before Prohibition was going to kick in. So Lovecraft, he wanted to try it.
That's hilarious.
He wanted to give alcohol a try before Prohibition. So Lovecraft, being a teetotaler, a crazy teetotaler, wrote this as a cautionary tale for him. And the reveal at the end of it is that Old Bugs is actually Alfred Galpin. And he becomes a derelict, and he's a slave to
Gotcha.
the alcohol and stuff like that.
Oh.
And then at the end of it, there's like a little note. It says, at the bottom of the manuscript, Lovecraft had written, "Now will you be good?"
Oh, he's trying to help him out. He's trying
Yeah.
to keep him from drinking. Not only did Lovecraft spawn the genres of science fiction and horror, he actually did the first PSA.
He did.
The first after-school special.
First after school special.
Right there. That
There
actually
it is.
reminds me of a great Oscar Brown Jr. song called "Somebody Buy Me a Drink." You should probably listen to that instead of reading the story.
Comments about the podcast.
Oh, we have some comments?
we have plenty of comments. We're having wonderful feedback from lots of different people.
That's true, and I like it.
Yeah,
I support it, and
thank
I
you, everyone.
really, really appreciate it.
But I hate to focus on one guy, but he writes really good comments, and they're pretty insightful. This is, again, J.B. Lee.
Let's hear what he had to say.
Another home run this week. Of course, it would be nice if Lovecraft would at least try to hold up his end of the show.
Okay, all right.
And he will in time. He will.
No, I like that.
But Beyond
That's
the
good.
Wall of Sleep's brainwave machine, goofy and mood-shattering as it is, begins the fusion of the nascent science fiction genre with a well-established supernatural story, and that gives the tale quite an importance in retrospect. The genesis of Gothic science fiction, Lovecraft's brand of weird science, will go on from here to drag down demons from the stars, summon gods from other dimensions, and call up phantoms from eons past. And if it begins with a tinfoil hat precariously balanced on a sloped head of a renegade rube, well, even Einstein had to start somewhere.
It's true.
So, JB, yeah, very good point.
Yeah, it's
Something
a
that
really
we
good
kind of skipped over is that Lovecraft is one of the first guys to really take supernatural and science and meld them together.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that he does this in his writings, and that's really cool.
It's really cool because it's one of the... I remember having that realization, and I don't know what story it was. My first exposure to Lovecraft were pretty strictly horror stories, or they had wizardry involved. It was
Right,
like Charles Dexter Ward.
That was Charles Dexter Ward. I remember you
necromancy
saying.
involved, but
Necromancy. I think it's pronounced necromancy.
Is it wacky?
Necromancy? Is that what you
I don't know what I was saying. I only read it. There's never a point in my life where I have to say that, and you know what I mean? It just doesn't come up at work.
Of course, yeah.
The first time I read a story and went, wait a minute, he's saying these old gods are from outer space?
Yeah.
It was really a strange kind of what's the word for it when you have cognitive dissonance? Those two genres to me didn't seem like they should fit, you know?
No, but they totally do. Well, I have nothing more for this episode, Chad.
I don't either, but I liked it, and
I liked it. I want to thank Pete again. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Pete,
for stepping up and giving us a little read.
Lovely. What are we doing next week?
Next week is The White Ship.
Ooh, I don't know that story.
I don't know it either.
What do you speculate it's about?
I'm thinking that The White Ship is about a fry cook named Charles.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am so excited to find out about this guy now.
Yeah.
I'm Chad Fife.
I'm Chris Lackey.
This has been the HP Lovecraft Literary Podcast.
HPPodcraft.com.
See y'all later.
HPPodcraft.com.